Hello, friends. So today we'll be discussing regarding the recent administrative decision of the Honorable High Court of Gujarat to have live streaming of its proceedings of the first court, that is of the court of the Chief Justice of the Honorable Gujarat High Court, as an experimental exercise or as a pilot project. The recent live streaming has started from 26th of October this year, and as you can see on the screen, this was one of the particular screenshots which has been taken uh, of the live streaming which happened on that very day. And I also went through this particular live streaming and I found it absolutely brilliant in the sense that there was no time lag, there was no any hurdle or any problem as such. The proceedings were as smooth as the original hearing itself, and I supposed that I was almost sitting in a virtual courtroom and watching the live proceedings. I even enjoyed the proceedings in the sense that it all the cases which were held in live proceedings also carried constitutional matters, and this was the particular case of which I have shared this screenshot. This case was regarding an admission into an educational institution in the state of Gujarat, and the particular contentious issue was the particular petitioner who was a student. He was denied admission because he had studied his 10th standard outside the state, and so he was denied admission due to a particular rule passed by the state of Gujarat. So, keeping the facts aside, on a general note, I want to just have an observation that this live proceeding, at least for the day on which I watched this particular proceeding, was a complete success, and there was complete and absolute smoothness in its proceeding, and also in the browsing of the particular video. So, coming to the order which the Gujarat High Court passed on its administrative side, it is a particular press release which is signed by the Registrar General. And as you go through this particular press release, it's a hierarchy, it's a chronology. Firstly, the High Court observed that the virtual hearing has started since the onslaught of corona in this country, and from 24th March 2020, virtual hearing has been started. But virtual hearings were confined only to the parties, the victims, the corpus, etc., and whose presence were required during the hearing. That means basically those persons required for the case and in the hearing. Those who are only having the so-called, I can use this word, privilege of having access to the virtual hearings of the court. But as you know, in the recent years, the Supreme Court, in its judgment of Swapnil Tripathi versus Supreme Court of India, had underlined the importance of the concept of open hearing, the concept of public courts, and the concept of independent and transparent judiciary as such. Even on the judicial side, the Supreme Court, underlining this particular aspect and this particular trait of the Indian Constitution, it held that live streaming is in public interest and should happen, and it also laid down some model guidelines and technical modalities for live streaming of its own Chief Justice Court. It also requested the Supreme Court as a whole to have an amendment in the Supreme Court rules of 2013 and insert all those modalities which are required to have a smooth and efficient live streaming. As you know, that as you read this particular press release, here also the Gujarat High Court has relied upon the writ petition of 2017. This particular writ petition is the Supreme Court judgment of Swapnil Tripathi versus Supreme Court of India only. And as it has been highlighted in bold letters, you can infer the importance, its significance in the present experimental and pilot project of the Honorable Gujarat High Court. Next, in the next one or two paras, the High Court has laid down that it is an exercise on its administrative side, and it is basically an experimental exercise only. And as you can read this, as part of this said exercise, in order to ascertain the feasibility and workability of the available options for the same. This is to direct. That means basically to just check and to test the feasibility of such a wide exercise which they are contemplating. They have just started from a minuscule level and started the experimental live streaming only in one court, that is the first court of the Honorable High Court. In other words, the Chief Justice's Court, Chief Justice Vikram Nath Court, and that has started from 26th October 2020. They have not given any deadline as such because, as you know, this is a very dynamic and a very new exercise. It's in a nascent level in this country, and they have kept it pretty flexible. And if there would be a necessity that to complete this experimental pilot project before time or very early and start the final live streaming as early as possible, they can also do so. So for that purpose, they have kept the whole endeavor flexible and they have not given any deadline as such. Also, they have specified that anyone can watch this particular live streaming and the link is accessible from the High Court website and will be also available in the YouTube channel of the High Court of Gujarat. The link will be updated every evening of the previous working day. So in this notification, they have basically specified all the technicalities and modalities of the experimental project which they are undertaking to do. And so I just perused through this particular notification, this particular press release, so as to clarify the exact and precise guidelines which they have laid down or which they are following for this experimental project. Now, moving to the jurisprudential underpinning of this whole exercise, of this whole, we can say, the trailer of a very big movie which we would be seeing in the upcoming days, in the upcoming months. The jurisprudential underpinning has been laid down in the landmark case of, as I specified earlier, Swapnil Tripathi versus Supreme Court of India. Now, basically, if you see the central ratio of this case was that the concept of open courts and public hearing is a very inherent concept of a judicial proceeding, and it is this particular characteristic of openness, of transparency, and of accountability of the judiciary, which has kept judiciary in very high bounds and in very high esteem in the society, and has also helped the judiciary to remain independent. So, if I can just go on to the specific references made by the Supreme Court in this particular judgment, which carry a very heavy weight in its conclusions. The first and the foremost specific reference was made to Jeremy Bentham's work in the case of Scott versus Scott, and this case was relied upon by the Supreme Court in this very case as well. It's a 1911 judgment. It has been reported in all England reports. So Jeremy Bentham observed, which has also been reaffirmed in Scott versus Scott, and then again relied upon and reaffirmed in this case of Swapnil Tripathi. In the darkness of secrecy, sinister interests and evil in every shape have full swing. Where there is no publicity, there is no justice. Publicity is the very soul of justice. It is the keenest spur to aggression and surest of all guards against improbity. It keeps the judge himself while trying under trial. I would like to focus on this very line, the last line. And again, he also says that this publicity, it is the security of securities. Publicity is the security of securities, right? So the central focus is on what we call publicity. That is public observation, public scrutiny, and public view. This is the central core idea of this whole judgment, of this bulky judgment. I would like to focus in this last line. It keeps, that means the publicity keeps the judge himself under trial while trying the case. The judge is himself under trial while hearing the case or trying the case. So you can get the inference that this publicity, it keeps judicial caprice within control. I would like to clarify this thing, that the fact that these are judges are also human beings. Judges are also subject and open to error. Judges are also open to all those caprices and vagaries which ordinary human beings have. So I would like to emphasize here that why we say, or why judges are always held in high esteem in the society with high prestige. Not because they are born angels of God, but whatever they do in their judicial capacity has the primary element of objectivity and fairness. And why do we say that whatever does a judge does is objective and fair, has the element of objectivity and fairness? Because in every judicial proceeding, there is hearing of all the parties who have interest in the case or who have stakes in the case. They are given the opportunity of hearing, they are given the opportunity of assertion, as well as they are given the opportunity to contradict and to object. So public scrutiny is ensured to its apex level in a judicial proceeding, because virtually anyone in this on this earth who has interest and stake in that particular case has the opportunity by default, because natural justice, as specified in Maneka Gandhi, is part of Article 21. So by default, he has a right to be heard, and because he has a right to be heard, he can produce evidence on his side. He can also object the evidence of the other side. This is the best check and balance possible physically on this planet. And that's why judicial proceeding, whatever gets recorded in a judicial proceeding, whatever is concluded in a judicial proceeding, has the highest probative character amongst all other conclusions and observations possible, because it has undergone the most rigorous scrutiny possible. That's why judicial proceeding, that this is the inherent character itself. The moment we take away public aspect or the public characteristic of judicial proceeding, it gets reduced to what we can call a chamber hearing, or a personal conversation with the judge. Now, in that environment of secrecy, in that environment of exclusivity from public, the judge no more can act like a judicial officer, because the moment we say judicial, the moment we say judicial proceeding, an element of publicity inherently comes in. That is the inherent character of public hearing. The moment no one is allowed, or anyone who has a relevant stake in the case is denied the opportunity to be heard, or denied the opportunity to advance his evidence or contradict or counter the other side's evidence, that moment, that particular proceeding, it loses its inherent character of public scrutiny, of giving opportunity to public, or of fairness. So I would like to conclude by this, not this session definitely, but this idea, which is the central idea of the judgment, is that, as you can also observe, I will later also scroll down to the holdings of Justice Chandrachud, as he has summarized from a very landmark case, that open courts serve as an instrument of inspiring public confidence in the administration of justice, and open courts act as a check on judiciary. Justice Chandrachud himself has held that open courts act as a check on the judiciary. So this itself implies that judiciary is not something, judges are not born angels of God. Judges are not what we say, they are born angels as such. They are not open to any error. They are not open to any human failings. They are also humans. They are equally open to all those human failings to which other humans are open to, other executive is open to, right? So this publicity and this public nature of public hearing and open access to the hearing is an inherent and basic structure, we can say, of a judicial proceeding, and also because transparency, accountability ensures independence of judges. Because in a public hearing, no other force or no other factor will have any role in a public hearing, will have any swing in a public hearing. You can mark this word. In the darkness of secrecy, sinister interest and evil have full swing. I would say that in the brightness of openness, no sinister interest, no evil has any swing. Since no other interest, evil, influence, or any other, what you say, the corrupt people who used to who try to make judges corrupt, or who give some incentives or influences to judges, they will also have no role. Why? Because in every public hearing, the judge is himself under trial. Whatever he observes, whatever he says, whatever he records, and whatever he decides is or has to pass the muster of public scrutiny and has to be backed by reasons recorded in writing. Since everything is open, since everything is subject to public scrutiny, and since everything has to be recorded by reasons, no other evil or sinister interests can influence the judges or can influence the decision or have any swing in the courts of law. So, in this way, transparency, openness also ensures independence of judges. Judges being independent from any influence from any person or any muscle or money power from the society, judges being remaining independent from any other interest from the society, they are remaining independent from any other power center in the society. They are fully committed to the rule of law and administration of justice. That's why, in a way, this publicity is also a basic structure of the constitution because it is a basic part of independence of judiciary. And independence of judiciary, as we know, has been held in a cousin of cases as basic structure. So publicity in courts is itself a part or a basic feature of the basic structure of the constitution, whatever terminology being used. So this was the judicial underpinning or the judicial or the epistemological reasoning of why judicial proceedings are inherently open or should be open and accessible to public. And the moment that openness is gone, the moment that public access is gone, the inherent character of a proceeding being a judicial proceeding is gone. It gets reduced to simply an administrative proceeding kind of thing, or what we can call an executive fiat. It gets reduced to an executive privilege or an executive mercy. It's no more a judicial proceeding as such. Moving to the next observation, which was being relied upon by this very court in this judgment, is an observation of Justice Frankfurter of the US Supreme Court, which has been relied upon in this very judgment. You can just follow my mouse cursor. Validity and moral authority of a conclusion largely depend on the mode by which it was reached. So, the moral authority, see, we know that everything depends upon public and people because people is the basis of the constitution. And whatever the people say is the supreme law of the land. The constitution is the supreme law of the land because people have framed it. So it's the people's opinion and the people's voice, which is the fundamental characteristic and fundamental law in this country. Now, when people will abide by a decision of the court, only when that decision, the moral authority of the decision, it depends upon the mode by which it was reached. If the judges have denied the victims the right to be heard, if the judges have given various privileges to the convicts while hearing various unnecessary privileges, if the judges have granted bail to the convicts at the very first instance without even hearing to the prosecution, even though the judges conclude that this particular person, that what I use the term convict, let us use it as accused. This accused person is not guilty, thus acquitted. Still, his acquittal will carry the bearing of conviction in the public eye. Why? Because even though the judge has concluded that it is an acquittal, the person is not guilty, because the mode through which he has reached this conclusion, this mode carries a particular, what do we say, stigma, a social stigma. The society will see this particular conclusion with a very stigmatic eye because the mode is unfair, the mode is biased and one-sided. That is towards the accused. So that's why the validity and the moral authority and the public compliance and conformity to a particular judgment, decision, or conclusion of a judge or of a court will only depend upon the mode through which that conclusion or observation was reached to. This is a very important bearing, and that's why the moment everything is transparent and public in nature, There will be no challenge to the means through which it was reached to. So these are the two central jurisprudential aspects upon which the Supreme Court laid down and held that this particular uh, live streaming is nothing but an extension of the concept of open access and public hearing and publicity in a judicial proceeding. And that's why it's simply an extension of the well established rule or convention and not something which has been invented in the recent times. So moving to Justice Chandrachud, as I said you earlier, the Justice Chandrachud has concluded the key observations from the landmark case of Naresh Sridhar Mirajkar versus State of Maharashtra. You can definitely see it on your screen. These are the key takeaways or the key observations from that very judgment. Open courts serve as an instrument of inspiring public confidence in the administration of justice. Open courts act as a check on the judiciary. Publicity of the judicial process is the soul of justice. Open justice must yield to the paramount object of administration of justice in case it becomes necessary to restrict access in the facts of a particular case. And open courts are essential for the objective and fair administration of justice. Always remember that the inherent character of a judicial proceeding is not that the presiding officer is a judicial officer. That's a very wrong notion, although it's a technical, mechanical meaning, definitely. But the natural meaning of a judicial proceeding is that it is objective and it has the characteristic of fairness. The moment any proceeding is at the apex of its objectivity and is at the apex of its fairness, that is a judicial proceeding. I'm not saying that any proceeding which has a modicum of fairness or a modicum of objectivity. No. Any proceeding which has the apex of objectivity and the apex of fairness, that is only a judicial proceeding. That's why when we say quasi-judicial proceeding in administrative law, we do not always expect a quasi-judicial authority or a tribunal to follow CRPC or CPC in that watertight degree to which ordinary courts of law follow. Because those tribunals and quasi-judicial authorities are not judicial authorities. They are not bound by law to follow evidence law in strict sense. They're not bound by law to follow procedural laws in strict sense. Summons, warrants, and calling witnesses, recording the evidences, giving chances of cross-examination, re-examination. These all procedural requirements are bound to be followed by a court of law, which is a judicial proceeding. These are not bound to be followed by a quasi-judicial proceeding or a quasi-judicial authority. And that's why quasi-judicial authority or quasi-judicial proceeding is less time-consuming, is more expeditious. But yes, definitely, consequentially of not following these requirements in its strictest sense or to the fullest, the conclusions arrived at, the observations arrived at by a quasi-judicial authority have less significance than a judicial authority. They have less value in the eyes of public than a judicial authority. Because judicial authority follows the apex of objectivity and follows the apex of fairness. So I hope I'm clear that why this particular publicity element is itself an inherent element of judicial proceedings and not something inferred by the Supreme Court in this judgment. It is itself an inherent element of judicial proceedings. So I hope this concept is clear and these conclusions are also understood by my friends who are watching this video. Moving to these are all about the jurisprudential underpinnings and the philosophical justifications of why we should have courts having live streaming, because live streaming is nothing but an extension of open access and public hearing and independence of judiciary, because they also ensure accountability and transparency. And these all concepts, accountability, transparency, open access, public hearing, are well established principles of a judicial proceeding and also independence of judiciary. Before going to the guidelines, which were the sample or model guidelines issued by the Supreme Court in this case, I would just like to come to a very crucial aspect, which many of you might misunderstand while going through this particular judgment. But also, the Supreme Court in this judgment has held one more justification for live streaming. That is the public's right to know, which has already been implied as a right to know under Article 19(1)(a) by various judgments. Now, definitely, public has a right to know, but right to know what? You can't generalize. Public has definitely a fundamental right to know all those matters which are in session in a particular court of law, which have a public concern or which deal with public interest. Now, I should be clear here with the distinction between matters of public interest and matters of interest to the public. I would like you people to just go through the judgment of the CPIO, Supreme Court of India versus Subhash Chandra Agarwal, the landmark judgment in which there were some articles filed by the famous RTA activist Subhash Chandra Agarwal, and those were rejected by the PIOs, the public information officers, then rejected by the Central Public Information, accepted by the Central Information Commission, but then rejected by the Central PIO of the Supreme Court of India. So these all went up to the Supreme Court of India through various appeals, and the name of the case is CPIO, Supreme Court of India versus Subhash Chandra Agarwal. So in that case, the Supreme Court highlighted the difference between matters of public interest and matters of interest to the public. If I can distinguish it with a simple thing, if you see that in the recent case of Sushant Singh Rajput, or in the recent, or whatever we see cases like which are of amusement to the public or of public entertainment, Sushant Singh Rajput's case is not a matter of public interest. Definitely it's a criminal act, if at all it has happened, because the court is still in session with the case. The case is sub judice. It was a criminal act. It's a crime. Thus, a threat to society, and societal interest is involved. But in this sense, in every crime, societal interest is involved. So, Sushant Singh's case is not a matter of public concern or immediate public interest or grave public interest. It's a criminal act, if at all it is, which will prove subsequently. And because of the media trial involved in it, it has become a matter of interest to the public. Public is interested in that. It is a matter of entertainment to the public. But is it a matter of public interest in the sense that will the decision of that case affect the majority of the public of this country in its immediate time? No, definitely not. Similarly, for instance, I would say these cases of Vijay Mallya fleeing the country, this case of recently we have seen the series of Scam 1992, the case of Harshad Mehta, all these things. These definitely deal with public money, right? And because the corpus of sum is very high, you can say the matters are of public interest. But where there are small or modicum of corpus of money, like some 1 crore or 5 crores, 10 crores, and the matters go up to Supreme Court, right? These are not matters of public interest, but because of the media's involvement in it and media's attention to it, that becomes a matter of interest to the public. So any matter in the society which is entertaining the public, which is interesting the public just to know what to engage, is not a matter of public interest. Rather, in a normal, what we can say, a normal street road, if there is public nuisance, if there's a blockage, a drain blockage, or there's a barricade blocking the particular road, even though that is not exaggerated in the media, or that is failed to gather public attention, still it's a matter of public interest, because every day a particular section of public will get affected by that particular barricade or that particular blockage of it. So we have to distinguish this concept of public interest and something which is something which is of the interest of the public to know. So something which is interesting to the public, which is seen as interesting to the public. In similar sense, all the actors and actresses of the film industries, almost Many persons are interested to know their personal lives, but those are not matters of public interest. So I hope I'm clear with this distinction of the concept of public interest and something which is of interest to the public. So in all those cases, yes, in all those cases where live streaming is required, I would like to emphasize that wherever it is like a PIL, like an environmental matter which has affected our section of society, or which has a substantial question of law involved in it, like the Sabrimala case, or this recent triple talaq case, which has substantial question of law or questions of interpretation of constitution or PILs, etc. These are actual matters of public interest. And in these matters and alike matters where public concern is involved, those matters should be the subject matter of live streaming. And in those matters only, public has a fundamental right to know. But in any personal dispute of a husband and wife, or a personal civil dispute or land dispute, even though it goes to appeal to the Supreme Court, that does not mean that since it's a case pending in Supreme Court, it's a matter of public interest and thus a live streaming should be allowed. But definitely yes, if in a divorce case the case has gone into appeal to Supreme Court and ultimately there's a substantial question of law pending in it, and or if a substantial question of law in respect of family law comes to court through a PIL, right, then it may become a matter of public interest. So it all depends upon the facts and circumstances of each case, that whether this particular matter is a matter of public interest, public concern, public policy, or it's simply a matter of interest to the public or amusement and entertainment to the public. As simple as that. So I would now move to the conclusion of the judgment, wherein by reaffirming this particular, yeah, page number 70. Yes, just before going, I just recalled it. Before going to the guidelines or modalities which the Supreme Court has issued as a model pilot project, Justice Chandrachud has also laid down this particular notion of public knowledge and public information. If you can give a bare reading to this particular paragraph, the impact of open courts in our country is diminished by the fact that a large segment of the society rarely has an opportunity to attend court proceedings. This is due to constraints like poverty, illiteracy, distance, cost, and lack of awareness about court proceedings. Litigants depend on information provided by lawyers about what has transpired during the course of proceedings. Others who may not be personally involved in litigation depend on the information provided about judicial decisions in newspapers and in the electronic media. When the description of cases is accurate and comprehensive, it serves the cause of open justice. However, if a report on a judicial hearing is inaccurate, it impedes the public's right to know. Courts, though open in law and in fact, become far removed from the lives of individual citizens. This is anomalous because courts exist primarily to provide justice to them. So here Justice Chandrachud has highlighted the hurdles and the hindrances faced by the ordinary common man in exercising his right to know under Article 19(1)(a). But again, if you see the particular guidelines, if I may just go to the guidelines, therein the Supreme Court, even Justice Chandrachud, has delineated the particular kinds of matters which shall constitute the subject matter of live proceedings. And we shall start there from the guidelines, the model guidelines issued by the court. Just a second. Yes. So Justice Chandrachud has observed here that initially a pilot project may be conducted for about 3 months by live streaming only cases of national and constitutional importance in the Chief Justice's court. Progressively, as and when the infrastructure is ready, This court can expand the ambit of live streaming to cover all cases, except for the ones which are excluded. Now, we shall see what kind of cases might be excluded. Kinds of matter to be live streamed. Proceedings involving the hearing of cases before the Supreme Court shall be live streamed in the manner provided below. Cases falling under the following categories, that is, matrimonial matters including transfer petitions, cases involving sensitive issues as in the nature of sexual assault, and matters where children and juveniles are involved like POXO cases. Here also it has been provided that apart from the general prohibition on streaming cases falling in the above categories, the presiding judge of each courtroom shall have the discretion to disallow live streaming for specific cases where, in his or her opinion, publicity would prejudice the interests of justice. This may be intimated by presiding judge in advance, or live streaming may be suspended as and when a matter is being heard. Considerations shall also be given to grounds of privacy, confidentiality, or where administration of justice might get prejudiced. So, on a general note, what I also concluded earlier in a logical sense, that only where constitutional matters and matters of public interest are involved, there only generally live streaming shall be allowed. And also, only with respect to those proceedings or those matters only, the public has a fundamental right to know. In other such cases, there's no such fundamental right, but definitely it will advance the cause of justice, administration of justice, because openness, public hearing, and public scrutiny is anyhow good in every kind of case. At least it is good for the parties involved and their interests. So, definitely public access, public hearing, and openness, open justice is an advancement of justice itself in each and every case, irrespective of whether it's a matter of concern to the public or a simply matter of concern to the parties privy to the case. But in cases where it's a matter of concern for public interest and constitutional matters, in addition to this being a facet of judicial independence, judicial transparency, and administration of justice, it is also a fundamental right of the public to know. As simple as that. So I hope I'm clear with the conclusions of this judgment. And here, Justice Chandrachud has also concluded the considerations which have played a significant role in concluding this particular judgment, that live streaming shall start, and as a pilot project shall start for 3 months in the Chief Justice's court. And you can also go through this judgment. You will again find other modalities which are to be addressed and to be followed for this pilot project. That is the manner of live streaming, and also the consideration of archives, whether it is to be archived or whether it is to be again uploaded on YouTube or such, and the matters of copyright of the Supreme Court over such recordings, that such recordings shall not be transmitted, re-recorded, or changed or altered without the permission of the Supreme Court, and other things, as in what are the hours for which it shall be live streamed, that the live streaming shall have a time lag of 2 minutes, 10 minutes, etc., 3 minutes, so that if any private matter or confidential matter inevitably comes just in a moment, so the Supreme Court has some physical control over the live streaming, and it can pause the live streaming for the time, and it can continue the proceedings because of concerns of privacy and confidentiality, as indicated earlier. So I hope the entire concept is clear, and I also honestly hope that this particular endeavor of the Honorable Gujarat High Court is again writing a new milestone in the history of public justice and access to the courtrooms and the public's right to know. And again, ultimately, in the venture of transparency in judiciary, at least the judicial side, if not the administrative side, definitely there are again disputes in relation to the appointments of judges, promotions, transfers, collegium, etc. That's a different debate altogether. But on the judicial side, I still have faith in the judiciary as an institution in this country, and it maintains its integrity because of the inherent characteristic of transparency, of fairness and objectivity, which I have earlier indicated in this session, because of which a judicial proceeding is a judicial proceeding. So I hope the concepts are clear. And with this, I would just end my session. Thank you very much for patiently hearing this whole session. And I hope I have been able to deliver at least some knowledge to you people, and also able to kindle that ignition within you, so that you can go and read this full judgment, and you'll also become enlightened to the fullest extent, as I have been able to be to some extent. So thank you very much, and Lex Templum will be coming with such videos in regular intervals. Please keep following Lex Templum. Thank you.